hi.
Oh, hey.
Right, well, let's start by introducing ourselves then. We'll put our podcaster voices on. Or
Okay. All right. So I'm Duncan. I am founder of Three-Sided Cube. We build mobile apps, web applications, software, all sorts of things.
Yeah, and I'm Sophie. I'm the COO of Three-Sided Cube, and we started working together. I think it'll be 14 years in January, which is
Wow.
disgusting.
We started so young.
It's so
In
weird because
school.
we're both in our 20s now. So how do
Yeah,
we
yeah.
was babies when we first started? But yeah, so it's been 14 years of building. And like, I'd say, I mean, obviously when I first started, it was quite a learning curve because I didn't realize that Android had a different layout to iOS and all that sort of fun stuff. Didn't know what an API was. You really went out on a limb when you hired me. But other than that kind of initial curve of like learning about tech and all the rest of it, I'd say the first, probably 13 years was pretty, some new challenges and some bits that changed. And iOS 6 was it that changed? That was like, oh my God, everything's different. But generally, it's the last however many years has been pretty stable, I think, as much as tech can be. There's been some changes and stuff, but it feels like now looking back, nowhere near what we're kind of currently dealing with in terms of the landscape.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a totally different world, right? And almost everything is changing. Not quite everything, but
Feels like it.
yeah,
So
almost.
yeah, we built the agency and, internal changes and stuff as well, and obviously the team and how we operate and where we operate and all the rest of it, but have kind of been building in the same way for a long time and iterating on what is known and kind of building software the same as pretty much everyone else. And then we haven't. And then we've been making some big changes. Did you want to talk a little bit about that? About how you reached
Yeah.
that realization?
Yeah. There's basically a transformation coming, and it's pretty big, pretty big. And I think the thing with us, definitely with me, is I've always wanted to, the further you are in the future, the better placed you are. And certainly for the type of business we are, we want to be right in that future. So because then you understand what it's like, you understand. And it's often why you see a lot of startups done by 18, 20-year-olds, started Facebook because he got it. He understood what people would want. And it's often the younger generations that bring that stuff in. So yeah, we've been through like a journey, and it's been heavy and hard and miserable.
I think mainly because we're not 18 and 20, so we haven't got the energy to. We're trying to act like kids, like startup kids.
Maybe, but necessary. And we're not fully through it. We're only part way through it. But I think almost everyone else is going to have to go through it. And it's going to be interesting. So maybe we can share what we've done, some of our learnings, and just prep you for the pain.
Yeah, because I think when you first started talking about it, I was not quite, I was definitely not quite there, right? Like there was a lot of Twitter links back and forth, which I loved. But there was a lot of stuff that you were talking about that I was like, oh, cool, that sounds fun, like lovely. And it was kind of very like, that's future us, or some crazy guys in Silicon Valley or whatever will pick that up. But it didn't seem like it was something that needed to change kind of immediately. For me, it was like, right, okay, we've got lots of fires over here. And then you were kind of like, but what about this fire? Why don't we add this to the pile? So I think I took a minute to kind of get on board with that, but you seemed to, something had obviously kind of clicked for you in that. And then I think for me, the moment, other than all the articles and stuff that you were sending that I was reading, the thing that made me go, oh shit, like we can do this, I think was when we had, probably won't name the software, but there was a piece of software that we were using that kind of did an overnight cash grab, right? They turned around and said they were going to triple the budget or whatever the cost. And then you started working on a replacement for it. And that was kind of terrifying. You slept for 4 days.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that kind of personal?
Yeah, I think so. The world actually changed in December 2025. It's just a case of when people start using it and unlocking it and understanding it. I think we started playing with it. I personally started playing with it in March 26, just building like a CRM system and some other bits and pieces. And it was like, wow, this is crazy good. But yeah, it wasn't until like a weekend over when we found out that like they were going to triple the price of the software, as a lot of software companies are doing right now. And it was like, this is crazy. And I wonder whether we can replicate that piece of software. So yeah, while on holiday, working till like like 3 or 4 in the morning, just like consistently doing stuff. And you need to see it through your own eyes. So you can, a lot of this stuff is difficult to understand. You just hear people talking about it and you're like, oh,
Mm.
okay, cool. It's not until you actually get your hands on and get dirty. But yeah, within a week, or I had like a semi working version. And then I think the really interesting bit was handing it over to our head of delivery. And she was like asking me to like make some changes and changes. And she understands the product. So she really
Yeah.
gets it and she's really close to it. And then she got tired of asking me to do stuff and was like, can I just make these changes myself? And then she spent a couple of weeks,
Oh,
like
that's
the
really good.
early hours, like easy stuff. And then then we did it, right? We created
Yeah.
it. But what we learned from it was a huge amount. And this is the reason where it was like, cool, we need to change what we do and how we do it. Because a lot of the old paradigms just got eradicated overnight. So
Yeah.
things like only developers can build, that got eradicated overnight. Multiple people can build. Whether you want to build is a different question. Whether you have the taste is a different question.
Yeah.
Whether you understand how you put things together is another question. But more people could build than what could, build software previously. The second thing was actually by replicating or building your own software, you suddenly then can query it and just ask whatever you want. And you can suddenly do like super smart stuff. So this was a scheduling bit of software. We realized pretty quickly is actually, so generally in agencies, you schedule, someone actually manually schedules. They look at who's done what and stuff like that. Well, we exposed enough data to really work out when a project comes in, who's best to assign to it, because the system knew who worked on the last bit,
Mm.
what particular area, their availability, all of those kind of bits and pieces. So you could do that. And then you could also take software. Software is really friggin' annoying. It's built does like 50 to 70% of what you want. And then you have to just work around the rest. Well,
Wow.
all of a sudden overnight, we could just make the software do whatever we wanted it to.
Yeah.
Like the first things, like your bugbear was like a small thing, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. Just for like how many years that we've been using it, the fact they only had 8 colors, which sounds so stupid. But then when you're looking across a whole studio to be like, right, okay, what is everyone working on? And looking at the overall Gantt, to not be able to separate by color easily, because we've obviously got more clients and more projects. That small thing has made such a difference. And I think the thing that was most annoying was that I'd ask them, I was that guy, and every year asked them when they asked for feedback, was like, so, yeah, it's fine. Can you give us some more colors? And just never was there. And then you're like, that's such an easy thing that you think from a client, from a product roadmap, that you would just be like, yeah, okay, we'll just do that. But yes, that was a big thing. And that was kind of the thing for me. I think that piece of software, because that's solved where it's scheduling, it's a huge part of like what I sort of get involved with at that sort of level in terms of analyzing that and the margins and looking at utilization and the rest of it. It was like, oh God, actually, because all this data is in here, we can, like I say, we can query that, and actually we can get it to generate these reports, and sort of started going to Jess more and more and being like, can it do this? Can you get it to do this? And I think for me, that was the thing that unlocked my kind of understanding of what could be done and got me on board with what you were kind of saying about what we need to do with the agency, because I think it took away. Before, I was a bit like, okay, how much of this is hype and noise, and like people just being like, oh my God, you can do anything. And you're like, yeah. And then you look at it and you're like, okay, well, maybe, you can't, it's not going to get you to the moon, but it can do a hell of a lot of good stuff in software. And that closing that gap, like you say, of the thing where you're like, oh, this software is annoying, but we live with it because it's the best of a bad bunch. And it kind of gets us 80% of the way there, like from an internal operations perspective, the fact that you could close that gap and be like, actually, no, it can just do exactly what we need it to do. That was really great. And then when I kind of applied that to like, oh, we can do that for our clients. And instead of saying, well, we're way more restricted because those features that you want are going to, they're not really feasible, or they're going to take a million years or whatever. It's like that again, it's not entirely solved, but it gets you a lot closer to like, oh shit, actually what's possible if we start kind of working in a different way, and getting other people involved, right? It's that, like you say, it's not just the developers now that can do the building. So that it kind of opened my eyes to like, oh, the process changed, because I wasn't having to log tickets with Jess and say, oh, can you do this and the rest of it. We did later learn that ticket logging was essential for traceability, but in terms of the internal project, certainly just being able to kind of, embody a few more of the roles in terms of design, and then QA and product owner and all the rest of it. I think that was really cool. So that was good. And then, so the unlock in terms of like the tech of like, wow, this can do pretty cool stuff, was like, great, problem solved. We'll just change the whole agency because the tech's there. And that's not how that worked. So yeah, I think I got on board with the thing of like, oh my God, the tech, it's not the hype, it's not the noise. And it was like, right, cool. Now we just need to make these changes and get everyone using this amazing thing. And then this will be amazing, right? And then that wasn't quite how that washed out, right? Is I think we both had an understanding of this is a big thing, and this is going to be a lot of work, and this is going to be interesting, but I don't think that we realized quite how big a journey this was going to be on the people side. I think that's probably fair to say.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think it's worth just explaining one thing as well that we aimed to do and are doing, or in the process of doing, is essentially you've got these like models on the outside, right? You've got the Claude, you've got Chat GPTs, all of that kind of stuff, and plenty of other models, right? And then you've got your business here. So you've got models here, business here, right? And the models were getting scary good, scary quickly, right? And every day you'd wake up and suddenly there'd be these 15 new things, and it was like overwhelming in terms of what was going on here. And what became clear, and this is the big transformation that not every single business will do, but the majority of them will do, is they will take the models from here and their business here, and they will embed them in your business. Because what you want to achieve is essentially, as the models get better and faster, you can unlock that same thing. You get better, you get faster. A incremental increase in the model incrementally increases how you operate as a business. And that is the big thing that people are not yet really deeply understanding. And it's an arms race. The sooner you get to that point, you won't be able to compete with a team that has embedded in what they do models that self-improve the process, that self-clean up, that as you get information in, it gets better and better. Now that's probably the bit that we're going to talk about. That is not, we're 50 odd people. That's not a easy journey to go on. And it's not so much as an easy journey, like you were saying, because of the technology. There is a lot, we've got a lot of very highly technical individuals that really understand this stuff. And it's a challenge, but yeah, the transformation of team and people is like way, way harder. Like not even close in terms of difficulty. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think I was thinking about something I think, and this is maybe not the kindest comparison, but I think the only time that we've had to make this sort of change, and we've done this to ourselves in terms of the pace that we wanted to make this change, but the way of working thing that happened when COVID hit, when the pandemic hit, it was like, okay, overnight, we've all now got to work from home. We were used to, prior to COVID, we were based in Bournemouth, right? We had a couple of people that were remote workers, and we were used to being in a room together and working. We've always had client calls that were on, I think on Zoom back in the day, and then Google Hangouts and the rest of it. So we've always done a bit of that, but that was quite a big change. And I think that took a minute to get used to, but that was the enforced constraints of you legally can't leave your house. So now what are you going to do? Now make it work. And I think part of the difficulty with this has been that there isn't necessarily there isn't a legal constraint, right? There isn't that thing that's like, look, we love working in person. We love having client meetings in person, but we've got to do this with this way of working and, like you say, embedding the models in. We can see it and we're like, we need to do this. And it might feel like not a legal constraint, but like a thing that we absolutely must to us. But there are, there were people when we first started the journey that were kind of still in that, like, it's a useful tool, but like, do we need to, and couldn't quite see it. And without that sort of constraint, I think that's been the thing is getting people on the journey to see it and to understand it and to get through the hype and all the rest. I mean, we've all seen the number of reels and stuff on, Instagram, whatever, that's like tech C-suites being like AI. And, there have been points where I have felt like we have been those people.
We 100%. 100% we have. Like day in, day out, we have been memes.
Yes,
100%.
we have been living memes, which I've really, really enjoyed. So thank you for
Yeah.
that. But I think it has been necessary. Like I said, COVID was kind of the big change with the constraint. I guess this one is more close to the internet, right? So in terms of the change, businesses don't make that change. That thing of, like you were saying, you can't compete with a team that has that
Yeah.
embedded. If you were a business trying to compete with another business that had an online presence, if you were like, no, we're not going to go online, you wouldn't compete. And I think that's where this will be, if not already, of like
I
with
think, I think the fundament, I agree with that. The fundamental difference is the time. So when
yeah,
the internet rolled out, obviously a lot of infrastructure didn't exist, right? Number of people on there didn't exist. The
yeah,
way the web worked didn't exist. Like having security around payments was a whole big piece in the
mm,
puzzle, right? You didn't have mobile. So there were lots of like physical restraints that took like infrastructure to be laid down that slowed the whole process down,
yeah,
as well as people, changing their habits and slowly over time changing those habits. That will be the case here as well, but it's just going to happen in a way more
yeah,
compressed timeline. So that, being a blockbuster is the ultimate thing, right? None of us want to be blockbuster. There's a real risk that all of us, and I think this is why the CEO memes and the C-suite memes are there, is because people are doing that, and they are doing exactly what all of the memes say, because they understand how quickly this is changing. They understand some of the opportunities, and they understand the risks, and that's why you know that level they're getting involved, because for a lot of business, the big overarching risk is going to be this.
yeah. And I think that's, we've like you say, we've had to do that because we can see that that's the thing. I think hopefully where we differ from the memes is that what we kind of realized once we did realize that this was having quite a big effect than we had anticipated on people, we did kind of not pause the process, but we did sort of step back and go, right, okay, how can we help people through this, rather than just going, it's this and you have to accept it and get over it, you got 24 hours to get used to it or whatever.
I
I
think we
think
did a
we
bit of that, right? I think we can talk about we did a lot around. I mean, going back to those constraints, we did a lot around those forced constraints, because the big thing we're trying to do is transform people that have worked in a certain way for 10, 15 years, right? Or 5 to 15 years. And how do you create that same thing that you're talking about, which is how do you create the COVID, situation that is a forced constraint?
Yeah, I'd like to think we did it with a bit more compassion, maybe, than some
Yeah,
other
hopefully.
meme. But yeah, I think it was the thing of going, okay, right, we need to get people on the journey. What do we need to do on that? And then I think the sort of taking stock of, okay, this is a big thing. We need to sort of support people through it, put an arm around. We can't do this as a blunt instrument of just like, you just need to get on with it because you're not going to get the best out of people. But then I think the next thing we kind of came across was like the nuance of what it means when you say like, oh yeah, I'm using AI. Right? So then you've got the guy that, we've had the conversations with the teams. We're trying to inform them why we're trying to do this as a business. So we're giving them the insight so they've got the understanding of the why. We're not just saying you have to do this blindly, all the rest of it. And then you get to a point where it's like, they're like, okay, well, yeah, I'm using it, it's embedded. And then you're like, oh God, is it how embedded? And you realize that there's just such a spectrum between how people can use it. And that was,
Yeah.
that was,
It's like building a world class running team, right? So you want the best runners in the world, and your first question is, do you run?
can you
And
run?
it's like saying, do you use AI? I'm using AI. It's the same thing. Would you build a
Yeah.
world class running team by just asking if you run?
Yeah.
Like it would be like it would be
Yeah.
like cool.
Yeah. I'm like, are you fast?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, like compared to what another. So yeah, I think that piece of it became apparent as well, that it was like, right, okay, how people are using it different. And then I think a really interesting thing for us was the adoption rate and the different ways that people were using it across like the technical and the non-technical teams. So I think the non-technical teams were suddenly like, oh my God, I'm like a God, I can build things. And it was that like real kind of novelty almost for people that have worked in tech for so long, but always been, unable to do the building, suddenly they're able to be makers. I think that was a real like amazing thing for some of our team. Again, did the same thing, didn't sleep for several nights at a time and just building these really cool things that they've kind of had floating around in their head of like, oh, but it would be amazing if this did that or this did that, and then suddenly they can do it and they can unlock that. And I think what we realized was that that sort of novelty and the dopamine of like the learning and like the producing and stuff was like amazing for the non-developers. And then actually what we realized was for the developers, they were having to learn the new models and the new tools and the rest of it, but they were also having, like I said earlier, to unlearn how they'd been operating for, 15, 20 years for some of them. And I think that was like, oh God, okay, right. So we know unlearning is harder than learning. We did the research on that. So we know that that is neurologically a thing. And I think that helped as well, because then that gave us a bit more empathy and insight into like, right, okay, it's going to take an extra minute for some people to get there because they're unlearning, particularly the ones that have been doing it for that much longer. So I think that was an interesting kind of insight into that. And then the sort of the value and identity piece that kind of went with it for the developers as well, in terms of, they're like, well, I write code and this is how I've added value for all this time, and taking them on that journey to sort of be like, you still add value. It's just that
Different.
it's different value now. It's in the architecture, it's in the ideas that you bring, in the sort of the way that you're structuring things. So I think that was an interesting.
And I think you can't underestimate how difficult that is, right? Is
Uh-huh.
transforming a organization involves transforming people as well as all the technology.
Yeah.
And the transforming of the people is the hardest thing. And it takes energy, like huge amounts of energy. And I think that's what's going to be one of the driving forces that will slow most organizations down. Is where do you get that energy from? What drives that? How do you consistently keep that energy pushing through?
Yeah.
This is to get you to where you need to get to.
Especially because you're trying to drive all of this change and this transformation alongside the day job. So it's
Yeah.
like, running an agency is hard enough. Like that's tiring in itself, to then have to go through this process and, accepting that people are going to need that additional support and everything. And we're trying to give them that and trying to explain where we're coming from. I think we upped the number of business updates that we did by tenfold in the last few months, just in terms of trying to keep people engaged and understanding where we're coming from, and sharing that why, while balancing not becoming living versions of the memes where we can help it. And I think, it's very tiring. So I think that has been a difficult kind of journey, but I think a necessary one. I think it just wouldn't have worked. Like you say, you're transforming an organization, you're actually transforming people. I think where we kind of also got to was realizing that, us standing there and just shouting the word AI at the team as a whole, weirdly, wasn't going to do it. And then I think what we kind of realized, I think came from you, in terms of that sort of approach of like, right, okay, we need to sort of make sure that we're going on an individual basis, so that we're talking to people as people, and kind of not addressing them at team level or organization level, and being like, right, okay, you as an individual, like, I know you get it, but like what's getting in the way, and kind of trying to help them individually.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, because everyone's different, right? And some
Mhm.
people are like way more up for change, and some people are like, do not change a single thing.
Change.
Unfortunately, change is happening. So
Mm.
how do you get those people like, I do not want to change? And also,
Yeah.
it's not just like necessarily a resistance to change, but it's also about, what does the future look like? So people have been doing something for a long time. So in the software world, everything is changing and it's huge. And where people have been focused on building, like, applications and like screens that you log in and click and stuff like that stuff becomes easier. And that then means you then get to do the like crazier, harder, more rewarding like
Mm.
things here. But how do you show that? How do you get someone who's been used to doing that way to realize there is a whole world of possibilities, but you can't see those possibilities, and you've got to somehow believe someone that just says there is a whole world of possibilities? You're more likely going to be thinking, God, I'm used to doing this. Why am I unlocking it? So you got those that are more resistant to change or busy, right?
Yeah.
Doing their day job, which is a big old
Yeah.
thing, or can't yet see. And the problem is you're never going to believe anyone, right? you're like, okay, it's a bit like what we're chatting about now. It's like, oh, there's loads of change and blah, blah, AI and stuff like that. It's like, ugh. Not until you see it for yourself, right? You're
Yeah.
like, okay, it sounds like something's happening over here. Like, but is it actually happening, or is it all just a load of hype and
Mm.
rubbish? So that you have to get them to start doing that stuff so they can see and think about what the possibilities are. But that's individual by individual.
Yeah.
It's a big old task.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I think we sort of the first, I mean, it's wild to think that this was all in the last few months. It feels like a lifetime. But I think the first sort of few rounds of comms that we did were kind of around the, like I said, the why of like, look, we should be doing this because this is good for the business and the rest of it. And then I think what we realized that we had to do was kind of pivot that narrative towards more like, this is the direction of travel. Like there is a point where we can't keep convincing people that this is a good thing and this is going to be great. And there was a point where we sort of went, right, okay, we need to change the messaging slightly and we need to lean into the fact that this is the direction of travel. So like you're in the car or you're not. And I think that was the right thing to do for that certainty piece. I think all the time that you're sort of saying to people like, yeah, this is really great. There's that thing of like, okay, so are we doing this or are we not doing this? And if they're not, particularly if they're not super and, wanting to do it, that uncertainty, it's almost like false hope of like, okay, well, I don't want to do that. And all the time they're just banging on about how great it is. Maybe nothing will change. And I think what
Yeah.
we wanted to do was give certainty of like, we think this is the right thing to do. We think it's going to be great. And this is the direction of travel. So yeah, I think that the car analogy thing of like, we're going on this journey and we didn't have all the answers. And I think again, at first we were like, well, let's not, we don't want to start talking about all this change when we don't have the answers. And then it became clear. It's like, we're not going to get to a point where we're like, we know exactly what this is going to look like. So it became this thing of like, get in the car. This is where we're going. We've got great snacks. And like, we'll get there, but we can't tell you the exact route or,
Yeah.
the exact destination yet. It's just somewhere over there.
Yeah, the real clear communication is like absolutely essential. And you'll see it as well. I mean, I'm on Twitter a lot. It's a lot nicer than it used to be. But it's also the only place in the world that you find loads of CEOs and they'll kind of just talk about stuff they're doing. Like you can listen to the latest thoughts of the Microsoft CEO or whoever it might be, right? And
Yeah.
really interesting. And they've got some insane insights in that, but they're all trying to communicate really clearly that we
Mm-hmm.
are in here, right? It's not for
Yeah.
negotiation. This is where we're going. So, like you say, it's way nicer and way clearer that everyone could go, cool. At least in all of this chaos, I know this is what they're doing and this is where they're going. And that's not for negotiation. Like it simplifies that path and just
Yeah.
helps people. Being wishy washy here is the most damaging thing that you can do. And you will
I
get
think
nowhere quickly by being wishy washy.
I think so because I think ultimately, if there are people that are like, you know what, not for me. I'm getting out of tech altogether. I'm going to become a farmer or whatever. That's fine, but you need to be the kinder thing to do. I think is to be clear on that so that they can make that decision. Because all the time that you're kind of like say being wishy washy, it's hard for them to make that choice, and it's a big change for. If people are going, actually, this isn't what I want to do anymore because the role and the industry has changed so much. That's a big thing for them. So to give them the certainty of at least within this company, this is where we're going, I think is the right thing to do. And I think once we made that decision to be like, right, we need to be like clear and, concise. We need to be clear on the direction of travel. I think then that was kind of the first step of like, a form of constraint that we wanted to do. So it was like, we need to make sure that the team understands where we want to get to and what we want to do. And that was kind of the first thing that we did in terms of change the communication. And then we did do some other bits as well, right? So in terms of the VPS piece, that you had a whole vision for that of why that would work, which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah, I think there's a load of like technical stuff in terms of how you make this work and how you unlock the power for different individuals to do that. We've also found a load of like the point of us leaning into the future is we can understand how others are going to go through it and also start building what the future looks like and what bits are missing. So one of the big things that we found early was context. So although running really fast on new things. Existing things is really difficult. And the reason it was really difficult is they've got 5, 10, 15 years of like decisions and business logic and all of that kind of stuff, which is held in people's heads. So understanding that you needed a mechanism for capturing that context and delivering that context to the models so that, again, you've got them in the loop was important. Like being not just like single person prompting, being able to prompt from anywhere in the organization and being able to just like tag in from any system or anywhere you're going that, hey, this needs fixed. And,
Mm.
an agent pick up that job and deliver it, and anyone can do that, is all super important. But I still go back to the people transformation. Like, I think you've got to, if you want to get someone from here to, let's say you want to get them to here, you've got to scare the living daylights out of them, and you've got to put in some crazy constraints,
Mhm.
which seem stupid. So let's butcher the car analogy. So
Mm.
what if we didn't have tires, right? What like everybody knows you need tires on cars, right? Because they solve a load of problems, right? And nobody building cars is thinking, let's not put tires on cars, right? So if you want to push someone to like an absolutely extreme, put an extreme constraint on them. You are not allowed tires, right? Or your unbelievable constraint could be you have to design and deliver this car in 6 months, right? Unreal constraint, which isn't possible to deliver with the tools and the process that you currently have. So what does
Yeah.
that mean? It means you have to build new tools and new processes. So I think those, without the unrealistic constraints, I don't think you can't do it, because well, you can do it, but you have to wait for people to go through that process and catch up. And
Yeah.
that will take you years instead of months. And we want to deliver this, and we want to get as quickly to the front of like the way the world is going to move
Mhm.
forward, so we can unlock all of that opportunity, and we want to get there as quickly as possible. And that is basically a series of us working out how can we move mindsets over
Yeah.
to this way, and what tactics can we use to unlock those mindsets.
Yeah. And I think we had a couple of people that were really kind of like not resistant, but kind of like skeptical, I'd say. And then when we put them in those situations, we gave them constraints and, unrealistic expectations and all the rest of it. Once you kind of got past the like, and they then delivered because they had to go out of their comfort zones and the rest of it, you could see it was like a physical thing that you could see almost of like, oh, okay, they've got it and it's clicked. And then for all of those that have been through that kind of process and that it stuck with them, but I think, like you said, they had to go through it to get through it. I think they couldn't, us talking at them would never have got them there. They had to be put in a position where they were forced to use different tools or different processes or whatever. And then once they did it and saw that they could do it and hopefully enjoy it, I think that was kind of the turning point on the people side of it, of saying like, right, okay, if we can convert these people to this way of working and this sort of mindset, I think, then we've got a good chance. And I think we had a couple more of those moments as well in terms of the projects and things that we've been working on internally. So as well as the team, that point of going, okay, this is clicking, this is working. I think we had a few projects that we worked on where we were again getting people to work in these different ways and using different tools and stuff, and then seeing the outputs of the projects and how well they work together as a team and how the output of like the quality of it. And I think some of the feedback that we got from the people working on it, from developers, saying that they were delighted to never have to make a content edit ever again because other people could do it, and then looking at how well they worked in terms of the budget and the scope that we were able to deliver in the time and the amount of time it took. I think for me there's been a couple of projects where it's been like, okay, this is working, we've got something here.
Yeah. And I think the big one is, and part of the reason we are like pushing this through as hard as we possibly can, as fast as we can, without murdering everyone or just making it like miserable. And we have made
Making
it.
them murder us.
Yeah, make it murder us. And it has been really hard at times to try and do this. And we have had to slow down and then speed up and slow down and adjust. The reason we're doing this is because the world is changing, complete and utterly changing. And what we do and deliver now completely changes. So software is a really good example. So most people think, I don't know whether to murder the car analogy again, but
Love it.
like with software, people can only really see and think about what they have now. So in fact, I was talking to someone earlier today about cars. So essentially in cars, it was my brother yesterday. He remembers, so he's old, like real old,
Not like you.
not like me, very, very old. And he was talking about he remembers the first mate he had who got aircon in his car. And everyone was like, what do you need aircon for?
Get
It's
it.
just stupid. You don't need aircon in a car. Like, just open the window. Um, and if you take that back into cars, I mean, it's not quite, from the 80s or the 70s where you've got wind up windows, you'd have heated seats. What? Heated
No
seats
heated seats, no heating steering wheel. My God.
is beautiful. So, what happens is actually, with cars, they've got, cool, we can do this base, wheels, turning, windows. Now what do we do? And if you look at a car from the, 60s or 70s or 80s, and you look at one now, and they can basically drive themselves. That's the journey everything is going to go on. It's just going to be way shorter. So software is going to be unbelievable. And to compete in software, you're not going to be building the same things that you built previously. You're going to be building things that are like off the scale, crazy
Mm.
good. Like we've talked about self-healing software. Because we want to run fast, we've got like an ecosystem that looks after security, because you can no longer just allow people to like make those decisions. You need to have monitoring systems. We've got systems that self-improve. So look at how people are using the sites, any problems, and it will come and improve that. We haven't delivered this, but you could have systems where you've got to get someone through a funnel, a classic e-commerce problem, which is like, hey, we need to get them to buy. How do we get from that? Self-improving that process so that's what you do. You're building the self-improving processes where the models are all embedded as you go. That's where you're spending your time. You're not, just doing let's move this button 3. Do you know what I mean? You're
Yeah.
not. That's why, I mean, we call our change factory rebuild, because you're working on the factory. You're not working on the individual single car that you're putting out. You're working out the process that you automate along the line, how you can improve it as you go. That's the goal in software, and that's going to be the goal in a lot of different areas of business.
Yeah, because I think that's probably a misconception that some people have when we're talking about software, and again, the means of like what's being aimed for. The point of this isn't like, okay, well, we just want to do everything in 2 minutes. So we want to now be able to deliver a website that would have taken us, 3 months, or an app that would have taken us 6 months. We want to be able to deliver it in 2 days. That's not what we're trying to do, right? With this factory rebuild, we're not trying to just go as fast as possible, build the same thing, but just quicker. And I think that's part of the misconception. And I think part of what people maybe thought when we first started talking about it, what we were aiming for is like, just do it really quick, and you can scale down, then you only need 2 people, and then it's just God, me and you left, the horror.
Yeah.
Like, that's not what we're aiming for. It is that whole, like say, rebuilding the whole factory, so that what we're actually building is just what worlds away from what you currently have in terms of what's being built in software. Like you say, cars, compare a car in the 70s to a car that's come out last year. Still a car, still got, in theory, 4 wheels and a steering wheel maybe, and seats and all the rest of it, but it's not the same in any kind of way.
It's a world of difference, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think that's been an interesting thing as well, in terms of like getting people to understand that, and like, again, sort of why we're doing it, and what the end goal is, what good looks like at the end of it, right? Because we're not done. We're not like completed it. We've mastered everything. Mission complete and successful. We're still going through it.
Yeah.
There's still bits that are a mess, right? Like, there's still things that we're doing that are needing a bit more work. And
well, there's a lot of software, and we're probably no more than halfway through, people wise, maybe less. And then software will be never ending. But, in terms of our process, we're maybe halfway through, maybe that's overestimating it in terms of like the transformation from the underlying technology that we need in place. Yeah. So I reckon we're not even halfway, but I'll say halfway.
Halfway sounds good. And I
Yeah.
think that's part of the thing. And I think other businesses that go through this will go through this as well. We talk about the thing of maintaining two worlds, right? We're trying to bring everyone into this new way of working, this new world, new mindset. But then we're still delivering to some of our clients who are still wanting things delivered in a very specific way, and they're nervous about process changing. So it's kind of trying to bring them on the journey as well. It's not carrying people around and trying to convince them and do all of that. So I think that is a really interesting part of trying to maintain these two ways of working in these two kind of worlds at the same time. Again, getting past that misconception of like, oh, great. So now, get new business inquiries coming in of like, you can build this in 20 minutes with a £3 budget, right? And it's like, no, that's not. Because there's, systems thinking thing of like today's solutions are tomorrow's problems. There's
Yeah.
a load of stuff that has been solved with all of the new tools and the models and everything that's available. It is also creating new problems in terms of things that have to be addressed, and, the changes in infrastructure that have to be done, the security side of it that has to be managed. That has kind of, obviously massively blown up, and this kind of
I think
probably
I think that's a huge one. I think a lot of businesses won't be able to compete at all, and are at real severe risk of becoming blockbuster really, really quickly because of the time it takes to do the transformation, right? The
yeah.
energy that it takes to do the transformation. And it's once you've got that lead, it's not like it's just, oh, you need to plug this in and it's done. It's you plug this in and you rearrange all your systems, and then all of the team are starting to like move and understand what's possible, and then you do what's possible, and then you realize, oh, there's this that you could do, and then there's this, and you're like 6 months or a year or 2 years in front, and someone else is going to wake up and go, oh my God, they've got to somehow,
Yeah.
they are not going to catch up. They'll close the gap if they've
Mm.
got time to close the gap. They're not going to catch up on that knowledge transfer without, bringing staff from different companies that have done it. That's really probably the only way you're going to be able to catch up.
Yeah, because I think the thing is that they're like, oh, well, we'll do this when the dust settles, like when
Yeah,
when it's kind of established.
There's
Then
no dust settling in this world.
nothing is settling ever. It's just because it's continuously changing. And I think a big part of this process has been the learnings and the pain and the mistakes, and you can't circumnavigate those. I don't think, because I think, there'll be some that it'll be like, yeah, okay, cool, we'll learn from what other people have done. But because it's so much of it is the human element, you don't get to skip and leapfrog over that. Like, you have to go through it. So there is, like you say, there is no dust settling. There's no point where it's going to be like, okay, this is great, this is solved. Like, and or maybe there will be, but it would be a hell of a long way down the line. And by
Yeah.
that point, like you say, that gap is not closable, or people have moved up. Clients' expectations are changing all the time, and they're going to go where people are kind of looking forward rather than waiting for the dust to settle and playing it safe, I think. So, which sounds, a lot less tiring, but I think won't pay.
It does. Yeah, definitely. There is quite a lot of envy of the like
Yeah.
somewhat. I mean, it is insanely fun and exciting, and it's new world, and it's all the things that actually are really great, which is it's not been set. So technology has been set for a long time, at least 10 years since like mobile really started getting a bit more mature. There's been nothing really.
Yeah.
There's just been nothing. Real rubbish, incremental changes, like nothing major. Now there's a whole new world, whole new landscape. Everyone needs to figure out how this works and where they sit and all that kind of stuff. And it's all up for grabs. I think that's the fun bit. It's just, it's quite hard to get to
Yeah.
well, that's what I'm telling myself. That's the fun bit
Yeah.
to get.
This is fun. We're having fun. Come on. I think for me, it has felt like going full circle, and it feels like going back to the startup days. So it
Yeah.
feels like that same mentality of like everyone kind of pitching in, and you can do anything. There's not really, when I first joined, there wasn't like, you can't do that because that's not your job or whatever, because it was a startup. So it was like, God, can you do that? Great. Excellent. And you did also have to do, it was this loading the dishwasher or doing whatever stuff that wasn't maybe deemed as like that wasn't part of my job description. And I think that's a massive change. And, you've been managing our Claude account and adding people and doing the auth stuff. And that's, not typically a CEO's world, but we're all just kind of trying to figure it out. And I think, it has been, that side of it has been the fun side, I think, for me, of like, oh, this feels like startup territory. It's just, I'm not 24 anymore.
Yeah. Bit tiring.
a little bit more tiring, but it has been, it has been sort of good fun. And I think that's going to be a really difficult thing as well for the other companies, of like, if they can't remember those startup days, or they're so big that the startup is such a like,
There's a lot of process and mindsets designed to work in a fixed way of working, and
mm,
changing that is going to be the biggest challenge for all companies.
yeah,
We're kind of lucky in terms of where we are and the size that we are, that we're not that huge or we're not that big. So therefore, but even saying that, still really difficult. God knows how 1,000,
oh my
10,000
God, yeah.
person organization does
Yeah,
it.
it's that speedboat and oil tanker thing, isn't it? Just trying to turn direction. Yeah, I imagine they'll be very tired.
Yeah, yeah.
So in terms of like, to sort of close, in terms of, other than the ongoing theme, which is basically, I think we've both said, this has been really difficult and I'm really tired, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's been fun.
The ultimate thing.
Yeah,
But
the
one day
ultimate.
it'll be fun.
One day it will be fun. We've got some of it. Knowing everything that we know now, and like I said, it's staggering to think we're talking in terms of months rather than years, but knowing everything now that you know now, like, would you do it again in the way
Yeah.
that we've done
Yeah,
it?
yeah. God, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because I can definitely see where the world is going, or a better idea of where it's going and where it won't be. And I think the fun stuff is being able to create the future is the fun stuff, right? It's
Yeah.
not that is new. That is like exciting as hell. And not knowing what that kind of looks like, and everyone trying their own thing. And
Um,
none of us know how it's all going to run. It's a case of, do you know what the next 6 months or year or 2 years would be? So, yeah, definitely. I'd love to just flick a switch and it just be, and everyone just be over, and we all would be over. But then you don't find the problems that
yeah.
like others are gonna, like we have probably in the last, 4 months built more IP than we built in 15 years,
Yeah.
because we understand, one, a little bit what's possible, and two, what's needed for us. So
Mhm.
what's needed for us will be needed for others. So that is really, and again, it's not until you get into the weeds. But yeah, I definitely do it again. I'd like to sleep a little bit more. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I think I probably would have banked a little bit more sleep beforehand, but I think
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think it's been the right thing to do, definitely. So I guess we'll have to chat again in a few months and see. Actually, do you
See
know what? No, change your mind.
if we've actually made progress.
Yeah, I think